right, here we are from DevOps Days 2025, and I'm here with Peco Karayanev. How are you, Peco?
I'm doing great. It's a great event, so always a pleasure to see you again and chat about stuff.
The pleasure is mine. So you were here. I saw you yesterday, and Autoptic is your company, and you are one of the sponsors. So what does Autoptic do?
Yeah, so with Autoptic, we're building a telemetry assistant. What does that do? We're trying to save a lot of engineering toil and work. Also, we're trying to reduce how many things get missed. Like for example, when you're doing a release, you have to look at a lot of different telemetry data, trying to understand okay, we made a change, what was the impact? So instead of wasting a lot of engineering cycles and brain power to sift through the 10 different tools and looking at logs, your traces, your metrics, we're bringing all that disparate data from different places, and then we're rationalizing it. We're using inference to produce analytical summaries. So net, we're trying to give you more insight about what's happening to your environment without you having to do all the work.
So it's acting as an overlay to connect various pools of data. So why doesn't this exist today from somebody else? What is the need for this? Why does it?
Yeah. So good question. I think, and I'll give you my opinion and theory. I've been on the monitoring vendor side for a long time. Building products with Riverbed, with PagerDuty. I think there's economic reasons. We have once a software vendor becomes big enough, they're trying to consume additional adjacent domains. So net, it becomes a, hey, I'm a Datadog, I can do it all for you. Or I'm a Honeycomb, we're the only tool you need. Or I'm Splunk and just use so from an economic standpoint, vendors.
So there's no incentive for them to connect to other people.
There's no incentive for them to do it, and kind of over time they just become kind of focused more on their turf or their domain. But from a user perspective, there's many reasons why you end up with multiple siloed tools that you need to rationalize and then try to trying to make usable by a broad audience of people. All right. So kind of the reason why we started Autoptic is we wanted to solve that last mile of usability around kind of disparate data for engineers specifically.
And so was this something working at a firm like PagerDuty before, or people like that you saw, okay, this is a need that we have to figure out working at a vendor, or did you yourself say, man, I'm sick of having all these disparate sources of data?
It's probably both. I mean, over time, again, I've been in the observability world for more than, I would say 13 years. And I've had cases where even our own products that we're shipping, they're fully integrated, and then customers are looking at us just tell me the answer, grabbing their head and in frustration. It's and just the reality is that, because of economics and other reasons, there hasn't been enough focus put on this kind of last mile of how do we rationalize, bring data together in a meaningful way.
So how come other people haven't thought of that, or have other people started it? And the second part of the question is, what was the technology you used to stitch this together? How did you come up with that?
Yeah, great question. So I think people will be trying to solve this problem. In the past, it's possible that, I think in the AI ops space, there was some attempts to solve it, but it quickly kind of devolved into, speeds and feeds, how much data can we process? Can we ingest petabytes of data? Versus the way we're approaching is more about, well, what would a user do? I need to do this, I need to
user-centric design, I love it.
So it's more about the workflow of what I would do and then figuring out ways to automate it. In terms of the underlying technology, the state of the art when we started, and I think that's still the case, is people will create notebooks in wiki pages with these workflows, do this, look at this, if you see this, do that, stare at this dashboard, make this search in your query system. And it's so the way we start is well, that's kind of ludicrous that people have to do that nowadays. It's not automatable, it's not transferable, we can't share it. So the way we start is well, can we automate this, and what's the right way to do it? So we invented our own analytics engine and a language that can succinctly describe an analytical workflow.
So you created your own language for
Yeah,
this?
we did. Just like any company, any startup company, of course, you create a language, right?
We don't have enough
Yeah,
languages
we
out
don't. Absolutely, we don't. Like we need now with all the chat GPTs, we need even more languages,
Yes.
right? And that was kind of the first things. Like, is this like automatable? Like, if I describe this to you and we follow this recipe, can you do it? Like, this is pseudocode, and then can we actually now use that pseudocode to automate? So that's how the language evolved. And then the next question is like, well, yes, we have a lot of DSLs and they do different things and they do them well, but it's a learning curve, right? And that was right on the onset when all the chat GPTs and all the LLMs started like taking shape, and it's like, oh look, now I don't have to learn the DSL.
Mhm.
I can use the LLM to translate for me, and that became kind of the next inflection point for what we're doing. It's like, well, can we actually now you ask a question and then we do all the magic to create the workflow, we execute it, and we give you the answer, right?
So how does it sit on top of these, or how does it integrate with that?
So with LLMs and inference, like we use that throughout the application in a lot of different places. For example, within our DSL, we can prompt and can say like, hey, look at this data, look at that data, ask this question, right? So within the workflow itself, you can prompt and get responses and like integrate that into your overall analytic. And then we also have ways that we're using the results that we're collecting and presenting and doing another layer of inference and reasoning with LLMs. So think of it as like the application started with like a very core analytics engine, and now it's like become this, I would say like an AI native type application. Some people will call that like have like this agentic thing or like whatever, right?
Who doesn't love the word
Right.
agentic?
But and this was like we were in that direction. I would say 3 months or 6 months before agentic was like, oh yeah, agentic. Um, but ultimately, it's the way I look at the agentic systems is like you have tasks that need to be reliable, especially for operations. With development, I can ask questions, refine. It can be semi-correct. With operations, like the task and the results of the task, they have to be very precise, like very predictable. So the task is kind of the first thing that, whether using LLMs or not, it needs to work. And then building workflows on top of it, that becomes the agentic thing, right? Uh, at the end of the day, I think users don't really care what you call it. It's like we're building an answering machine. You have a question. How accurately, how quickly, how completely can we answer that?
So we were talking a little bit about this before, but you're connecting all sorts of data centers and programs and apps. How would you connect to all these? Is it going through APIs? Do you have to do
Yeah,
separate ones for each one? Is there a
yeah.
general translator?
Yeah, so the underlying language is essentially a general translator. So we have integration points that will, we'll do a federated search across, CloudWatch, for example, sources, Prometheus. We can bring data from configuration spaces or like, so again, the format and the data is like can be disparate, but we're not building a warehouse. That was kind of a pattern that basically fetch all the data, build this big data lake, and then maybe two people will ask questions about it. So you have this tremendous cost that you're accumulating on the off chance that somebody will be interested in the data. So we're not doing that. Monitoring tools have built really good systems, really good indices, really good search. So what we're doing is we're querying data, we're doing a federated search, bringing it together, and then doing all the massaging and stuff live.
So give an example of sort of a topology of how this would work. Some example of some apps that fit together and
Yeah.
how you'd knit it together. What would be an example of things that you collect and connect?
Yeah. So let's take an example like something that's fairly common. You do a release, right? Well, what do you have to do for a release? Well, how do I know if the thing that I just pushed out and deployed is working correctly, right? So normally what you do is like, okay, let's go look at some metrics, which means look at dashboards, like literally stare at them and see like, does this go up? Does this go down? Like what happened, right? Maybe go and run some search queries. Maybe go into your system of record around events is like, did this change happen accurately? Like, did we create the right resources? So you have all these like different places that you would have to go to with some domain knowledge and try to understand like the underlying telemetry.
Mhm.
So and again, the data is not in a single place. It's not in a single format. It's all kind of in different in different and it the other thing that we realize is like in our industry like nobody actually wants to do this work.
Mm.
It's necessary, it's valuable, but like nobody I would say nobody, very few people care to do this work, right? So it's like, why are we putting engineers to instead of being creative and building new features or building system, like why are we throwing them to spend inordinate amount of time in this like repetitive, toilsome work?
So do you have the ability, because a lot of data sources are all over the place and
Yeah,
people may not even know where they have the different
yeah.
places, is there a way that you're able to sniff that out and find it? Or if they don't know, then your system
Yeah.
won't know.
So at the moment, again, I would say we're in our infancy of how we've built kind of the basic system together. But at the moment, we're not doing like active discovery and trying to like, okay, here's the new data source we discovered and doing all that mapping. So it's more like we build build the integrations and you can configure them, in a way that you want. For example, with Amazon, one of the biggest problems always for data analytics is like data is very partitioned by region.
Mhm.
So if I have a site and an application that's in multiple regions, doing any kind of data, analysis is like extremely painful. So one thing that we do is, we've implemented things like wildcards where we can search regions, across, accounts,
Mhm.
bring data together, and then you can ask the questions that you need to ask.
So could this data be multi-cloud? Could it be on Google and AWS and on-prem?
I would say, again, we've designed it to where we can extend it into more stuff. Like right now, we started with, at least from the people that we talked to, there's still a lot of like one of my former colleagues describes CloudWatch as like, this is the best write-only monitoring tool, which means like there's a lot of value, there's a lot of great things that it does, but from a user perspective, it's kind of hard to do. So we focused on CloudWatch. Prometheus is also very
Mhm.
complex and hard to hard to work at scale. So we wanted to address some of the immediate stuff, and then we continue to add like additional sources. Like we added Sentry, a few other things. So we're looking to continue expanding, but again, we want to focus on engineers, DevOps, SREs, people that really have to live in this world, daily. We're not looking to be a generic like data processing system or whatever, right?
At least for now. So
Yeah.
just to end with, where would you say you're at now? I know you're doing demos, and
Yeah.
maybe you can tell people where to go for a demo. And then also, what are the main things that you're focusing on for the future? Because you're just starting out, so you can't do everything. But what would be
Yes.
your priorities going forward? And as I said, where are you now?
Yeah. Great question. I think for with early access right now, so we just open it. We we're gonna announce our first release, so to speak, and we're looking
When's that going to be?
in the next few days. Like
Oh, wow.
we'll make that. I'll post a LinkedIn message, But again, we're a small company right now, so we're focused on we're looking to bring early access partners that really believe that this is important, and they see that this is going to enable their teams to be more productive. You'll help them like actually identify and improve how they operate around change faster. So we're looking for some of those early adopters to kind of jump in and build with us. Learn and build with us.
And so the features for the future, how many have you got figured out, or are you just going to agilely hear what beta testers say and then fold that in?
Yeah, really good. So the way we've built the product up to this point, it's always been kind of in this building with curiosity and amazement. It's like every conversation, which even though I come from many years of industry and in the space, it's like there's so many new things we can do in a different way. So we approach the problems with like, why not? Like, okay, we've done this like for 20 years the same way. It's like, why couldn't we do it better or different way, right? Why can't we get closer to actually solving the problem? And that's how we build. So sometimes it's like it's very clear what needs to happen. Like one of the new features we're releasing is this idea of investigations,
Mhm.
so that we can enable users to more iteratively ask questions, get answers, and kind of without having to be running, in 10 different places.
Mm-hmm.
So think of it as like if you're using, if you're vibe coding with Cursor and Windsurf, like we're trying to do, we create a similar experience for the engineering data observability space.
And so next couple days, it's going to be out. Where should people go
Yeah,
to?
I think we're about halfway done. Maybe in a week or two, we'll have the first iteration to be. And again, for the people that are joining early access, they'll be able to see it more in action. And then where things take us, as long as we can work on, again, we're purposefully not trying to solve problems that other people have solved really well. We're focused on, again, that last mile of how do we make things more accessible to more people, and just make life easier overall, right?
Exciting. I can't wait till next, well, we'll see each other before that, but next DevOps days, who knows where you're going to be? Multinational, thousands of people. So, and with
I
that,
appreciate that.
Peco Karayanev, thank you. Great to see you again, and look forward to seeing what's going on next time.
Samwise Barton, thanks for taking the time. I always enjoy the conversation. So.
Pleasure's mine.
Awesome.